Hello everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. So this is the first normal YouTube video I've done in a little while. I did do a live stream, what was that, probably three or 4 days ago. That was very enjoyable, so all of you who were a part of that, I really appreciate that. Anytime any of you are able to comment or just pop in and tune in real quick, I enjoy that. I enjoy that a lot, so I really appreciate you guys. For those of you who are new to my YouTube channel, I'm assuming most of you are familiar with my channel or you're already subscribed. What I do on here is I cover different esoteric and occult research subjects. Ranging from Freemasonry to the Golden Dawn, the Tree of Life, etc., all kinds of things. So today's video, it's not going to be a super long video, probably only going to be about maybe 30 minutes or so. We'll see how long it goes for. I want to go ahead and give a shout out to my patrons on Patreon. I think I have a complete list here. Cory Falcone, Isaac Mason, Joseph Arthur, Georgia Mckinley, Harry George, Cody, Johnny Lemaster, or Johnny Lemaster, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Sorry if I'm mistaken. Karmic, Lindley, and Fungi Alliance. I think that's all of my paid members right there. And also want to give a shout out to, I think J Fiction, not sure who you are, but I think you donated a contribution, so I really do appreciate that. I don't think it had you join as a member though, so if there's something wrong with that, let me know and I'll try to fix that. And then also Marius Norman. Not sure if you meant to become a member. I got a notification that you did become an actual member. I knew you were a free member of the page, but if there's something wrong with that, let me know. So, and I'll try to help you fix it. Also, in the live stream that I had Freighter RC Hermetic Podcast pop in, and that was really enjoyable to talk to you, brother. If any of you are looking for a good YouTube channel with some good interviews, he's had Damien Eccles on there. He's had Anima Nora on there. Never know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but some really good guests. So go and check out his YouTube channel, Freighter RC Hermetic Podcast. Great stuff on there. And also got to talk to Jeff at Illusion of the Abyss YouTube channel. He did a live stream yesterday, so make sure you go out and check out his channel as well. And it is spelled illusion, as in illusion is the way it's normally spelled, of O-V instead of O-F, the Abyss. If you type that in, it should pop up. So in today's video, if you're interested in listening to a little bit of this book, H.P. Blavatsky's Revealing Cosmic Mysteries, I did cover a little bit of this book in the live stream, so I probably will not reread the same sections today. In this video, I'll read some different sections from it. So if you want to hear the other sections of the book that I read in the live stream, go ahead and check that out as well. I'm gonna put my hat on. My hair's a mess. Just got home from work today. So, you know how that goes. Wake up at 4 a.m. usually if I'm going in at 5, so I don't really take the time to try and wet and comb my hair typically when I work that early. It's usually just throw the hat on and go. So the hat's a good cheat code for that. But yeah, go ahead and I know the live feed is long. The last live stream, go under live videos, and it's like 3 hours and 10 minutes or something like that. So it is kind of long, but I did talk about this book in it a little bit, and I'll go ahead and read. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and read some sections in it. Right now, I'll go ahead and try to find where I was. For those of you who are not familiar with H.P. Blavatsky, I'm not really going to go over her history or anything here in this video. I've done a couple videos on her before, so just go ahead and check those videos out if you have not already, or just do a little bit of historical research on who she is. She, of course, was the founder of the Theosophical Society. Let's see, where did I stop reading this? I kind of marked some of the more interesting, what I thought were like the more interesting sections. We talked about the Kali Yuga a little bit in the live stream. Okay, so I thought this little section was interesting. This is on page 20, so we didn't really get that far into the book. And of course, I'm just skipping around and picking different sections and stuff. You know, due to copyright, I don't really know how much her works are copyrighted anymore. You can get all the old stuff online for free, pretty much. This is a newer compilation, so this is a bunch of old interviews and stuff that she did with a guy named William Judge, I think was his name, William Q. Judge. Very interesting conversations. So I found this book to be really intriguing, and I'm not super far in it, but I do find it very interesting, and have wanted to, you know, continue reading. So they are talking about the age of the Kali Yuga right here. He asks, what mitigation is there about this age? Is there nothing at all to relieve the picture? Because the Kali Yuga is the age of darkness. There is one thing peculiar to the present Kali Yuga that may be used by the student, H.P. Blavatsky replies. All causes now bring about their effects much more rapidly than in any other or better age. That's interesting, so things manifest a lot quicker. A sincere lover of the race can accomplish more in 3 incarnations under Kali Yuga's reign than he could in a much greater number of incarnations in any other age. Thus, by bearing all the manifold troubles of this age and steadily triumphing, the object of his effort will be more quickly realized. For while the obstacles seem great, the powers to be invoked can be reached more quickly. So those who are on any kind of true path of initiation, you're going to be able to reach your goals if you stay true, you know, to your path a lot quicker in this age. So there's a lot more material here, but like I said, I'm just going to jump through a couple small sections. Some interesting definitions she has here, because there's throughout this book there's a lot of footnotes for the text that go at the bottom, and a lot of them are definitions. So one of them is her definition of shells, and of course remember she's pretty right-hand path, quote unquote. Like I said, I don't really like to use those terms too much, but they are kind of important, you know, terms to understand in the occult field. But Blavatsky is definitely more leaning towards the light tradition, or, you know, working with like the hidden masters, quote unquote. Both sides have, you know, hidden masters. Even saying it like that, sides, is such a dualistic way to look at it. But us being here in the physical realm, you know, we are in a world of duality and polarity, so it's important to keep that into consideration. For shells, she says, a Kabbalistic name for the phantoms of the dead, the spirits, the quote, spirits of the spiritualists, figuring in physical phenomena, so named on account of their being simply elusive forms, empty of their higher principles. Interesting. Brothers of the Shadow, a name given by the occultists to sorcerers and especially to the Tibetan Dugpas. Is a term I had never heard of before, of whom there are many in the Bon sect of the Red Caps. Dugpa. The word is applied to all practitioners of black or left-hand magic. I'd say today we have a much more universal and better understanding of what, black magicians represent. It's more just the negative polarity of things. But back then, it's like anybody who practiced anything other than just service to others, total white magic, pretty much anything that was of any, if it could be considered service to self, like at all, or if it's anything selfish, so like even just trying to manifest things for the self, she in this book kind of considers that black magic. Where'd she write that at? I think I read it in the live feed, but I'll see if I can find that. Black magic she defined as sorcery, necromancy, or the raising of the dead, and other selfish abuses of abnormal powers. This abuse may be unintentional, yet it is still black magic, whenever anything is produced phenomenally simply for one's own gratification. So yeah, that's a pretty broad definition of black magic. That can mean a lot of different things. So yeah, much more conservative views, like, back then, because she lived, more like in the mid 1800s. That was around the time she was around. So way before like any of the quote unquote more modern occultists came around. Definitely very intelligent, though. I highly respect her works, and she's obviously very smart. Especially in her response to a lot of the questions that he has. She seems to know the answer, and not just like a vague answer. It's usually a pretty specific one. Let me go ahead and read her definition of elementals too, because we're going to read a little bit about elementals here, which play an important part in the in some of the discussion in this book. No, I just saw it. Here we go. Spirits of the elementals, the creatures evolved in the four kingdoms or elements: earth, air, fire, and water. The Kabbalists call them gnomes. We know gnomes of the earth, sylphs of the air, salamanders of fire, and undines of water. I believe that's the creature that's represented sometimes in the Starbucks logo. I think is like a water elemental. Starbucks even has something like a branch of their business is called Undine, which I thought was very interesting. So somebody knows about ceremonial magic in that company, and the higher up portion of the company, most definitely. They're at least familiar with the terms. Except for a few of the higher kinds and their rulers, they are rather forces of nature than ethereal men and women. These forces, as the servile agents of the occultist, may produce various effects. However, if employed by elementaries, the disembodied souls of the depraved that lost their chance for immortality, interesting, in which case they enslave the mediums. They will deceive the credulous. All the lower invisible beings generated on the 5th, 6th, and 7th planes of our terrestrial atmosphere are called elementals. See, it's like super specific, like almost scientific sounding stuff. It's all super interesting. Peris, P-E-R-I-S, devs, jinns, sylvans, satyrs, fauns, elves, dwarves, trolls, kobolds, brownies, nixies, goblins, pinkies, banshees, moss people, white ladies, spooks, fairies, etc. So there's a whole range of these these elementals. Now let me see if I can. If I can find a good section on the elementals. Let me go ahead and read the... Nah, I'm not going to read that. Just that group called the Dugpaws that she was corresponding with Brothers of the Shadow. That one I was kind of unfamiliar with. It's an old sect in Tibet. Maybe they still exist. Tibetan redcaps. Before the advent of Tsongkhapa in the 14th century, the Tibetans, whose Buddhism had deteriorated and been dreadfully adulterated with the tenets of the old Bon religion, were all Dugpas. From that century, however, and after the rigid laws imposed upon the Yellow Caps and the general reform and purification of Buddhism, the Dugpas have given themselves over more than ever to sorcery, immorality, and drunkenness. Since then, the word Dugpas, I don't know if that's how you say it, D-U-G-P-A-S, has become a synonym of sorcerer, adept of black magic, and everything vile. See, it's just always this really, like, kind of seems to throw black magic and all that into like one group. Here we go. Elementals and elementaries. If I understand you, an elemental is a center of force without intelligence, without moral character or tendencies, but capable of being directed in its movements by human thoughts, which may consciously or not give it any form, and to a certain extent, intelligence. In its simplest form, it is visible as a disturbance in a transparent medium, such as would be produced by a glass fish, so transparent as to be invisible, swimming through the air of the room, and leaving behind him a shimmer, such as hot air makes when rising from a stove. Also, elementals attracted and vitalized by certain thoughts may affect a lodgment in the human system. I thought this was interesting. If they're vitalized by certain thoughts and attracted, they may affect a lodgment in the human system. So they like go within the human system, of which they then share the government with the ego and are very hard to get out. She responds, that was the question by William Judge. Blavatsky responds, correct. In general, except as to their affecting a lodgment, some classes of elementals, however, have an intelligence of their own and a character, but they are far beyond our comprehension and ought perhaps to have some other name. That class has most to do with us. That class which has most to do with us answers the above description. They are centers of force or energy which are acted on by us while thinking and in other bodily motions. We also act on them and give them force by a species of thought which we have no register of. As one person might shape an elemental so as to seem like an insect and not be able to tell whether he had thought of such a thing or not. For there is a vast unknown country in each human being which he does not himself understand until he has tried, and then only after many initiations. That elementals may affect a lodgment in the human system, of which they then share the government and are very hard to get out, is as a whole incorrect. So she's saying generally that's incorrect. It is only in certain cases that any one or more elementals are attracted to and find lodgment in the human system. In such cases, special rules apply. We are not considering such cases. The elemental world interpenetrates this and is therefore eternally present in the human system. It kind of made me think of when I was listening to the Law of One. I don't know if I'll have time to get into the Law of One in this video. I do want to cover that at some point. They were talking about these portals are almost holes that are opened up, and a person I'll have to go over that at some point. It's from The Law of One, though. The audiobook's free on YouTube. Forget which part or which chapter. It's split up into sessions. They had separate sessions, but people who take like LSD and things like that, certain psychedelic drugs open up these portals and these gateways within the human body. So maybe there's some connection to that and these elementals, maybe even just ceremonial magic. Certain kinds of rituals and things would attract certain kinds of elementals that they could maybe create some blockage within the human system. I don't know, this is all like theoretical stuff that I don't really know the answers to. I just thought that was an interesting side note. But basically people attract all these elementals depending on the nature of their thoughts. There's a lot, she kind of goes into a lot of detail on these elementals. There's certain things she's actually not allowed to discuss, quote unquote not allowed to discuss, or that she won't. Certain things about these elementals that if people were to get, you know, there's certain information that humanity's just not like ready for, because they would use it in not an appropriate way, you know. Interesting part on seances on this page 31. William Judge, I have been told that but few people can go to a seance without danger to themselves, either of some spiritual or astral contamination, or of having their vitality depleted for the benefit of the spooks. A spook is a ghost or a hobgoblin used in the various apparitions in the seance rooms of the spiritualists. Having their vitality depleted for the benefit of the spooks, who suck the vital force out of the circle through the medium, as if the former were a glass of lemonade and the latter a straw. How is this? HP. Quite generally this happens. It is called Bhut worship by the Hindus, B-H-U-T, which is Sanskrit for gone, the word gone. A ghost, a phantom, the astral, quote, astral monad or body of the deceased personality. Interesting. So it's a worship of that. Interesting. Why are visitors at a seance often extremely and unaccountably tired the next day? Among other reasons, because mediums absorb the vitality for the use of the, quote, spooks, and often vile vampire elementaries are present. Elementaries, properly defined as the disembodied souls of the depraved. These souls at some time prior to death separated from themselves their divine spirits and so lost their chance for immortality. Very interesting. I don't really hear anybody talking about this. She touches on a lot of subjects and things that I don't hear anybody else really talking about. However, at the present stage of learning, it has been thought best to apply the term to the spooks or phantoms of disembodied persons in general, to those whose temporary habitation is the Kama Loka. Eliphas Levi and some other Kabbalists make little distinction between elementary spirits who have been men and those beings which people the elements and are the blind forces of nature. Once divorced from their higher triads and their bodies, these souls remain in their Kama-rupic envelopes and are irresistibly drawn to the earth amid elements congenial to their gross natures. Their stay in the Kama-loka varies as to its duration, but it ends invariably in disintegration, as they dissolve like a column of mist, atom by atom, into the surrounding elements. Weird. It's a little bit on seances there. What are some of the dangers at seances? And seances, that's more like something that people used to do, I think, a lot more frequently. Kind of an older tradition. I don't know that people do them a whole lot anymore. Definitely probably around the time this book was written or this interview was conducted. The scenes visible in the astral at seances are horrible, inasmuch as these, quote, spirits or the boots, which were the ghosts or the phantom, the astral monad or body of the deceased personality, they precipitate themselves upon sitters and mediums alike, and as there is no seance without having present some or many bad elementaries, half-dead human beings, there is much vampirizing going on. These things fall upon the people like a cloud or a big octopus and disappear within them as if sucked in by a sponge. That is one reason why it is not well to attend them in general. She goes on to talk a little bit more in depth about that. Very interesting stuff in here too about how elementals can help. They help guard treasure, and they can help certain people like find treasure too, depending on what kind of elementals the person attracts. So that section was really interesting. Let's see. Something else too was, I think it was called precipitation, which is where the masters can actually, if the adept or the student who's almost like master level, basically people who are under the guardianship of the master or working with the masters, their brain develops in a different way, and the master is able to like psychically communicate certain messages and stuff to them. And one of the things that they can do is they can actually write letters that way. There was a case in this book where this guy had been missing, he was missing a note or missing some piece of writing, and H.P. Blavatsky actually was able to read his mind, and then she went in the other room and manifested like a piece of paper with the same writing on it. That was very interesting. So not only physically like she did, but also transmitting the letters to the person within the mind. So they're able to astrally transmit the letters to the adept or the student, the master is. So I think that's all I'm going to cover on this book today, Revealing Cosmic Mysteries, H.P. Blavatsky. I also got another book for Christmas. Let me grab that real quick. This was the other book I got for Christmas, totally opposite end of the spectrum, but Demonolatry, very interesting read so far. I'm not that far into it, but definitely learning from it, you know, so it's one of the things I do here on Occult Perspectives, take different perspectives into account, you know, respect other people's traditions and what they have to offer, and you know, take everything with a certain grain of salt, because, you know, I'm not super skeptic. I'm not a huge skeptic anymore. I used to be a lot more skeptical way back when I was younger, but I think most people who are into the metaphysical and occult, they have genuine, you know, experiences and gnosis, especially when they're writing, you know, books to this level with this kind of knowledge. So I like to see different people's opinions and what they have to say, and it's all very interesting, and I learn from it all, and I'm able to kind of integrate it into the arcanum of information that I have going on so far. So yep, it's all just a learning experience, you know. So anyway, I've been listening to The Law of One in an audiobook format, and I'm probably about maybe a third of the way through it. Maybe not even that far. But somebody does still have a video. They do still have the complete audiobook, which was originally on Giving Voice. My voice cracked. Still does that, interestingly enough. Giving Wisdom to the Voices of the Ages. Barry was his name. He does a great job at narration, but unfortunately he passed away. So that, I don't know that YouTube channel, it's still up and running. They're probably taking donations, I'm guessing, the family. But that was a great YouTube channel for audiobooks. But somebody else has posted it, the whole audiobook. OMFGITZ code is me. Weird YouTube name. Very strange. But yeah, it looks like I'm probably only about 30 to 35% of the way through with the book, maybe a little bit more. I'm at the part where they just started talking about the Wanderers. How the Wanderers, and I actually resonate with it a lot, are souls from, I think it was 6th density, coming back to Earth to help with the planet's evolution. And one of the dangers of it is that, getting caught up in the karma of the Earth. And it also said they tend to deal with a lot of like medical things, like sometimes medical issues, like being handicapped, or they said sinuses. I thought that was actually kind of interesting, because I myself have a lot of, I've always had like sinus issues. So when I heard about the Wanderers in this audiobook, I had some resonance with that. I think that maybe there's a lot of different like starseed, backgrounds that I kind of resonate with. It's hard to say where our souls have, been before. I guess if you do some really deep, regression work, you might be able to get some glimpses of past lives, working with ancestors, things of that nature. You might be able to figure out a lot of that type of thing, Let me go ahead and play the first part of, while I've still got some time here.
The complexities are simplified. The paradox is absolute. It's January 15th, 1981.
And this,
So if you want it, you can find the information online on their website. I'm going to start with session 1.
The Law of One, it's very like in depth, and it's almost like it's very like scientific, and not sure what the word I'm looking for is just, I guess, just for lack of a better term, it's very, very intellectual. The Law of One, it's very, very interesting. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Law of One, it was channeled, by, I think Carla was her name, actually, the lady's first name. And I guess she ended up dying or committing suicide or something. And one of the other guys that was there, writing the stuff down too, passed away or something. So that's kind of crazy. When you're channeling to that degree, I would assume it would be very intense. And not everyone's probably, the physical vessel, the physical body can only handle so much. So it's hard to say what, the process of channeling, ended up doing to her. It was probably very rough. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'll start at the beginning of the Law of One, and I'll just kind of do a little bit of commentary on it. Looks like the first session was January 15th, 1981. And I just barely started notes. I have 2 little notes written here. Ra is the being that is being channeled. And Ra, actually, I believe this is the same Ra that we see in the Egyptian pantheon. Ra has manifested across time as different, different beings or different figures. And I think Lucifer is one of the ones that Ra is known as, being representative of. I think they may be one and the same. So that is something interesting to take into account when, checking out this book. But Ra has not talked to this instrument before, the instrument being the girl that's doing the channeling. This channeling is considered an intensive or more advanced approach to the system of studying the pattern of the illusions of your body, your mind, and your spirit, which you call seeing the truth. I really like the way he worded that. So they call it, they usually often refer to it as the distortion. Like the way we are viewing reality is technically a distortion, because it's all really one at the end of the day when you reach the certain vibratory levels, the higher densities. I think it was Universal Master, he said that, I don't know if he learned that from this audio book or this book, but the negative polarity really only exists up until the 6th density. And then by the time you get to the 7th density, there's no room, quote unquote, room for the negative polarity. It all becomes, positive polarity, because it's all unity, unified consciousness. Makes me think very much of like Kether, what Kether represents on the Tree of Life. So let's get into this a little bit.
1, which took place January 15th.
Wish this got a little louder.
Ra.
Hopefully you can hear that.
I am Ra. I have not spoken to this instrument before. We had to wait until she was precisely tuned as we send a narrow band vibration. We greet you in the love and the light of our infinite creator. We have watched your group. We have been called to your group, for you have a need for the diversity of experiences in channeling, which go with more intensive, or as you might call it, advanced approach to the system of studying the pattern of the illusions of your body, your mind, and your spirit, which you call seeking the truth.
That's what I wrote down. Interesting, too, he says we've been watching your group for a while. I don't know if he just means just the individual group or like, the human collective as a whole, because when it exists as one, like from where he's at, quote unquote, Ra is from, it's all just, they're perceiving it all as one anyway. They don't really see us as separate. He goes on to talk about that later on in the video.
We hope to offer you somewhat different slant upon the information, which is always and ever the same. At this time, we would be glad to attempt to speak any subject or question which these entities in the room may have potential use in the requesting. Questioner. Do you have a specific purpose, and if so, could you tell us something of what your purpose is? Ra. I am Ra. We communicate now. We are those who have the law of one. In our vibration, the polarities are harmonized. The complexities are simplified. The paradoxes are...
In our polarity, everything is unified? Is that what you said?
Now. We are those who have the law of one. In our vibration, the polarities are harmonized.
Harmonized.
The complexities are simplified. The paradoxes have a solution.
Paradox is reconciled.
That is our nature and our purpose.
They are one.
We are old upon your planet and have served with varying degrees of success in transmitting the law of one, of unity, of singleness to your people. We have walked your planet. We have seen the faces of your people. However, we now feel the great responsibility of staying in the capacity of removing the distortions and powers that have been given to the law of one. We will continue in this until, shall we say, your cycle moving the distortions and powers that have been given to the planet.
Interesting.
We have seen the faces of your people. However, we now feel the great responsibility of staying in the capacity of removing the distortions and
staying in the capacity of removing the distortions.
Powers that have been given to the law of one.
That have been given to the law of one.
We will continue in this until, shall we say, your cycle is appropriately ended.
So basically, they feel the need. He, or quote, they feel the need to intervene at this time. It's kind of what that seems like.
If not this one, then the next. We are not a part of time and thus are able to be with you in any of your times.
Yeah, because I think space-time, that's 4th density, or the 4th dimension, so I've heard.
Does this give you enough information from which to extract our purpose, my brother?
My brother.
Yes, thank you. Ra. I am Ra. We appreciate your vibrations. Is there another query? Questioner. I have heard the name Ra in connection with the Egyptians. Are you connected with that
The
Ra?
origin of the name Ra.
Ra. I am Ra. Yes, the connection is congruency. Maybe elucidate. What do you not understand? Questioner. Could you give me a little more detail about your role with the Egyptians? Ra. I am Ra. The identity of the vibration Ra is our identity. We as a
The identity of the vibration Ra is our identity. I like
group, or what you would call a social memory complex, made contact with the race on your planetary kind, which you call Egyptians.
So he's saying he's a social memory complex, which is like an aggregate of consciousness. It's not just one singular consciousness, but like a hive mind or a group.
What you would call a social memory complex, made contact with the more detail about your role with the Egyptians. Ra. I am Ra. The identity of the vibration Ra is our identity. We as a group, or what you would call a social memory complex, made contact with the race on your planetary kind, which you call Egyptians. Others from our density made contact at the same time in South America, and the so-called lost cities were their attempt to contribute to the Law of One.
So they contacted the Egyptians and South America, some of the ancient temples.
We spoke to one who heard and understood and was in a position to decree the Law of One. However, the priests and people of that era quickly distorted our message.
So there was a leader that they just talked with that made the Law of One the law, essentially the actual physical, societal law. But then, of course, it sounds like this information, as it always is, ended up getting perverted.
Robbing it of the, shall we say, compassion with which unity is informed by its very nature. So it contains all, it cannot abhor any. When we're no longer able to have appropriate channels through which to enunciate the Law of One, we removed ourselves from the now hypocritical position which we had allowed ourselves to be placed in. Other myth, shall we say, having more to do with polarity and the things of your vibration that are complex, again took over in that particular society complex. Does this form a sufficient amount of information?
So it sounds like from the way he's talking, is that they couldn't remain there because the Law of One was being so distorted. Let's listen to that again.
Having more to do with polarity and the things of your vibration that are complex,
rewind that a little
again
bit
contains all, it cannot abhor any. When we're no longer able to have appropriate channels through which to enunciate the Law of One, we removed ourselves from the...
Yeah, when they no longer had appropriate channelers to relay the message is when they removed themselves.
Now hypocritical position, which we had allowed ourselves to be placed in. Other myth, shall we say, having more to do with polarity and the things of your vibration that are complex, again took over in that particular society complex. Does this form a sufficient amount of information, or could we speak further? Is there another query? Questioner. The question was lost because the questioner was sitting too far from the tape recorder to be recorded. Ra. I am Ra. Consider, if you will, that the universe is infinite. This is yet to be proven or disproven, but we can assure you that there is no end to yourselves, your understanding.
So it says the universe being endless has yet to be proven or unproven, but there is no end to yourselves. So even regardless of external reality, the self has no end. The self is immortal, boundless, really. It's quite an amazing thing.
Ra. I am Ra. Consider, if you will, that the universe is infinite. This is yet to be proven or disproven, but we can assure you that there is no end to yourselves, your understanding, what you would call your journey of seeking, or your perceptions of the creation. That which is infinite cannot be many, for manyness is a finite concept.
Yep, so infinite, the word many does not encompass what infinite is. It's really hard for us to comprehend that, being here in the third density.
To have identify or define the infinity as unity. Otherwise, the term does not have any referent or meaning.
Yeah, and he says infinity has to be synonymous with unity. Otherwise, you know, it doesn't have a real meaning, as he just said.
In an infinite creator, there is only unity. You have seen simple examples of unity. You have seen the prism, which shows all colors stemming from the sunlight. This is a simplistic example of unity. In truth, there is no right or wrong. There is no polarity, for all will be, as you would say, reconciled at some point in your dance to the mind prism, which shows all colors stemming from the sunlight.
Yeah, the prism. So that makes me think of, like, you know, reminds me of the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon album cover.
This is a simplistic example of unity. In truth, there is no right or wrong. There is no polarity, for all will be, as you would say, reconciled at some point in your dance to the mind-body-spirit complex.
Reconciliation, like true reconciliation, is something I think about a lot, because there's so much conflict and there's so much opposition, quote unquote opposition, here in the physical world. And some days it's like, gosh, there's just, you know, even just this year so far, I've kind of had to break ties with a couple people, and it sucks sometimes, but you got to do what you got to do. And, you know, but at the end of time, everything's going to be reconciled anyway. It's a very interesting thing to think about, ultimate, like, reconciliation. Like, and there are certain things that, you know, you kind of wish could be reconciled in the here and now, but you can take peace, or take, you know, have some peace of mind in knowing that all things will be reconciled eventually. That's how it seems to work. And I do find a lot of comfort in that, and knowing that that's the case. But we are here to experience this distortion right now. It's very important for us to experience this distortion and not just want to skip ahead straight to the end. So I'm gonna keep on going.
Which you amuse yourself by distorting in various ways.
Which you amuse yourself by varying and distorting, varying the distortion in various ways.
As you would say, reconciled at some point in your dance to the mind, body.
Hopefully y'all can hear that. It's so quiet.
Which you amuse yourself by distorting in various ways at this time. This distortion is not in any case necessary. It is chosen by each of you as an alternative.
So he's saying it's not even, the distortion is not even necessary. It's just what we've chosen to experience as the experience. So that's kind of interesting.
Alternative to understand the complete unity of thought which binds all things.
In order to understand the unity which binds all things.
You are not speaking of similar or somewhat like entities or things. You are everything, every being, every emotion, every event, every situation. You are unity. You are infinity. You are love, light, light, love. You are. This is the law of one. May we enunciate in more detail? Questioner. No. Ra. I am Ra is another query at this time.
I think it's interesting too. Like, I don't know. They show like this bluish, almost like avian looking type being. I don't know if that's supposed to be Ra, or like what starseed being that's supposed to be. But it is very interesting to look at that figure as I've been listening to this audiobook. It's a very powerful image regardless. So it's kind of a cool picture they use, but yeah, I'm not sure which quote unquote which being that's supposed to be.
Questioner. Can you...
Maybe the blue avians, that's the only really guess that I have. But it doesn't look super bird-like really, so I'm not sure.
You comment on the coming planetary changes in our physical reality. Ra. I am Ra. I preferred to wait till his instrument had again reached a proper state of depth of singleness or one-pointedness before we spoke. The changes are very, very trivial. We do not concern ourselves with the condition which bring about harvest. Questioner.
So it sounds like they want the channeler herself to be more properly aligned. Is that what he said? but he didn't seem like it was super important.
Depth of singleness or one-pointedness before we spoke.
One-pointedness.
The changes are very, very trivial. We do not concern ourselves with the condition which bring about harvest. Questioner.
And then the harvest from,
to act as a catalyst.
The harvest, from what I understand, is like where they come at the end of every cycle. And then there's a giant harvest of souls. I know Universal Mastery does a whole video on that. There's probably lots of people who do, some kind of video talking about the harvest. I just know his was really informative and well explained and good.
Harvest. Questioner. If an individual makes effort to act as a catalyst in general, to increase the awareness of planetary consciousness, is he of any aid in that direction, or is he doing nothing but acting upon himself? Raw.
So this would be, what I'm doing on my YouTube channel. Anybody who's in the spiritual community spreading information or knowledge, this is regarding you, this question.
I am Raw. We shall answer your question in two parts, both of which are important equally. First, you must understand that the distinction between yourself and others is not visible to us. We do not consider that a separation exists between the consciousness raising effort.
See, he doesn't see, there's no distinction between us and the other. I'll rewind that real quick.
Or is he doing nothing but acting upon himself? Raw. I am Raw. We shall answer your question in two parts, both of which are important equally. First, you must understand that the distinction between yourself and others is not visible to us. We do not consider that a separation... It
says it's just not visible to them, the difference between us and others. Or oneself and the rest.
The distinction between yourself and others is not visible to us. We do not consider that a separation exists between the consciousness raising efforts of the distortion which you project as a personality, and the distortion that you project as another personality. Thus, to learn is the same as to teach, unless you are not teaching what you are learning, in which case you have done you, them, little good. This understanding should be pondered by your mind, body, and efforts of the distortion which you project as a personality, and the distortion that you project as another personality. Thus, to learn is the same as to teach.
So to learn is the same as to teach. That's true, because as I teach, I learn a lot. I learn a lot, and I learn a lot from other people and what they have to say as well. I even learn a lot. Sometimes I learn even more from those who are quote unquote the bad examples. You learn a lot of what not to do, or a lot of times those people that you may not like, they actually represent repressed aspects of yourself, or sometimes just the parts of yourself that you're rejecting or that are not manifest within you, but it is still other parts of you, if that makes sense. So I've explained that a little bit in videos prior.
Unless you are not teaching what you are learning, in which case you have done you, them, little good.
So you should be teaching what you're learning, it sounds like. So that's why I felt called to start this YouTube channel. I really felt like the Spirit had told me, now is the time. Now is the time to start doing this, because I didn't really get into the spiritual studies, I would say, until closer to like 2014. I started studying conspiracy theories and such like around 2012. That was when I started to wake up. 2012 was like a catalyst for a lot of people to wake up, but I didn't truly actually start like delving into the academia of spirituality and things of that nature until, closer to 2013, 2014, which is when I joined Masonry. It was 2014.
This understanding should be pondered by your mind, body, spirit complex, as it is a distortion which plays a part in your experiences at this nexus. To turn to the second part of our response, may we state our understanding, limited though it is. Group individuated consciousness is the state of sharing understanding with the other distortions of mind, body, spirit complexes, which are within the evident reach of the mind, body, spirit complex individual or group. Thus we are speaking to you and accepting both our distortions and your own in order to enunciate the laws of creation, more especially the law of one.
So that's kind of confusing. I think it's really simple what he's saying there, but it also sounds kind of confusing. I'll just replay that part real quick, try to wrap my mind around it a little bit better.
Part of a response, may we state our understanding, limited though it is. Group individuated consciousness is the state of sharing understanding with the other distortions of mind, body, spirit complexes, which are within.
So it's like your piece of the distortion sharing with the other, distortions of mind, body complexes, he says.
The evident reach of the mind, body, spirit complex, individual or group. Thus we are speaking to you and accepting both our distortions and your own in order to enunciate the laws of creation, more especially the law of one. We are not available to many of your people, for this is not an easily understood way of communicating or type of philosophy. However, our very being is hopefully a poignant example of both the necessity and the near hopelessness of attempting to teach.
So I think in today's times, in today's time, in today's era, there are a lot more souls incarnating on the planet that either does understand this material or will understand it. It's happening a lot more today than it has in the past. I think people are a lot more open-minded to this kind of thing.
Each of those in this group is striving to use, digest, and diversify the information which we are sending this instrument into the channel of the mind, body, spirit complex without distortion. The few whom you will illuminate by sharing your light are far more than enough reason for the greatest possible effort. To serve one is to serve all.
I like that he says that. So even if only a few, and that's kind of what I've said on my channel a lot of the times too, it's like even if just a few people appreciate this and the seed is able to be planted in that way, that's satisfactory enough for me, just a few, at least just a couple genuine souls who can really appreciate the knowledge and then help spread that awareness is key. So that's really cool that he states it in that way.
Group is striving to use, digest, and diversify the information which we are sending this instrument into the channel of the mind, body, spirit complex without distortion. The few whom you will illuminate by sharing your light are far more than enough reason for the greatest possible effort. To serve one is to serve all. Therefore, we offer the question back to you to state that indeed it is only activity worth doing, to learn, teach, or learn. There is nothing else which is an aid in demonstrating the original thought except your very being, and the distortions that come from the unexplained, inarticulate, or mystery-clad being of many. Thus, to attempt to discern and weave your way through as many group mind, body, spirit distortions as possible among your people in the course of your teaching is a very good effort to make.
Yeah, what he's talking about there, I think, is the speculative nature of, a truly spiritual person. He says being able to move through all the different distortions and speculate upon and imagine. And Madame Blavatsky even mentions in this book about how an adept is somebody who can who touches upon all the different notes of the scale. Or scales, plural, while, a normal, quote unquote, normal person or somebody who's not investing in consciousness or understanding to this degree, they might only be able to utilize one or two keys on the keyboard. Whereas an adept is, especially a speculative adept. I want to do a whole video on the benefit of being a speculative person in general. There's a lot of value that comes from that, being able to imagine or view or see what it's like to be all these different manifestations or distortions of being, because they each play a key role. And learning to understand that Baina type energy.
We can speak no more valiantly of your desire to serve. May we speak in any other capacity upon this subject. Questioner, will you be...
All right, and I am going to go ahead and end the video here. I actually was able to go a lot longer than I thought I was going to today. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, this video is basically an hour long, so I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. Thank you to all of you who have watched this video and any of my YouTube videos. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you like this material. Ring the notification bell if you want to be notified of new videos. Go ahead and check out the newest live stream that I did as well. And also, if you are interested in my book, Freemasonry and Ceremonial High Magic, I now have the prologue and the first 7 chapters of that book on my Patreon, which I will put a link to in this video description. Should be in the video description of other videos, as well as the community section of my YouTube page. Should also be in the information on the YouTube channel as well. You should easily be able to find the link to the Patreon somewhere. So I've got my book on there in audiobook format, accompanied by classical music. So that way it's at least a little bit more pleasing to listen to than just listening to my voice alone. So there's that. And I appreciate everyone who's been a part of the Patreon so far. It means a lot to me. Every little bit helps, especially in today's time. And yeah, I guess that's it. I thought maybe there was one other thing I wanted to mention real quick, but I think that pretty much covers it. So let me know what you all think, and let me know what you want to hear more of. If you want me to cover more of the Madame Blavatsky book, or we can go into the Law of One and just kind of play the audiobook, and I can do commentary on top of it like I was doing. If there's any of my other books in my library that that you're interested in hearing a little bit about, I can cover that as well. So I think that covers everything. So thank you all, everyone, very, very much. And until next time, peace and blessings.